Hey everyone, my name is Yates, and for this video I'll be showing you guys how I made the chopped vocal melody I made for an original track called I Only Need One Song. And I like to use this vocal chop melody technique for a lot of my remixes, but I like how it sounds, so I figured I'd just make an original out of it as well. So I'll go ahead and play from the beginning of the chorus of the song that features this chopped vocal melody part. With all the instrumentation and everything. I use Logic Pro 9 in case you couldn't tell. So I'll go ahead and play from the beginning. Here we go. So that's that. Sound pretty dope, obviously. So let's get right into it. The first thing I do when I make these lengthy chopped vocal sequences is I decide on what I want the melody to be in the first place. So I'll kind of go along with the chord progression that I have, and I'll be messing around on a keyboard or on a guitar or something, and once I come up with a melody that I like, I will put that melody in a MIDI format. So I'll go ahead and play you the chords I've been working with. So I'll just play a brief sample. Alright, so nothing too complex there. But it is important that your vocal melody goes along with the chords that you have, otherwise it'll sound kind of weird. So once I have that melody that I want, I will put it into MIDI format like I said, so I will play around on the MIDI keyboard and I'll record it. And then what's cool about computers and DAWs and stuff is that you can go back and fix your MIDI notes in case they aren't perfectly in time. So you just like drag it out like so. So I'll go ahead and play the MIDI sequence that I have along with the chord progression just so you can hear how that sounds. So that obviously is what I referenced or used as a reference for the chopped vocal melody part. I'll go ahead and play that quick. So once you have your MIDI sequence all ready to go and perfectly in time and all the notes are where you want them to be and everything, then you go to your vocal file. Now for this vocal file, my original file that I used, I basically just sang some nonsense and recorded it, so I'll let you hear that.
I still go through all this trouble every time we say goodbye.
So I basically just sang some random stuff because I knew I was going to be chopping it up. And what I like to do before I chop up the vocals is I export the vocals with all the effects and stuff on it, just so you don't, it's kind of annoying to work with that stuff when you're chopping up the vocals. So you put like your compression, your EQ, your reverb, all that stuff on the vocals. Once you have the vocals sounding pretty good, then I export that out and put it into the track again. So as you can see, this vocal track has no plugins or anything on it. It's just as it is. So
I still go through all the...
But you don't have to do it that way. I just find that it helps. Once I have the original vocals I want to work with, I will copy and paste that because I'm going to be chopping them up. And you want to preserve that original file in case you need to go back to it for something. And if you chop it up, it's going to be hard to go back and fix it. So I just copy and paste it just to preserve it. Now, I guess the next thing you need to do is just start chopping up the vocals. So I go note by note based on the MIDI sequence I created. And so, for example, this very first note, oops, I need to unmute that. So that very first note I'm looking for is an E. Now, in order to do this, you do kind of need to be able to tell what notes the singer is singing, or at least be able to reference the pitch in comparison to the scale. So I know that this is the root note, which is an E because the song's in E minor. So I guess you do need to be able to match what the vocals are to the MIDI melody. So I'm going to be looking for an E in this vocal part.
I still go through all this trouble. I still.
Okay, so I can tell that second word is the E. Now this isn't exactly the same part that I chopped for my song, but it doesn't really matter for teaching purposes. So I know that this that still word is an E. So I'm going to chop that transient at the beginning of the transient, which is basically right around here. And Logic has this little scissors tool, so I'm sure whatever DAW you'll be using has a similar tool. But you basically chop it towards the beginning of the transient, and then you want to chop it long enough so that it will last as long as your MIDI note. So I'll go ahead and chop it right here. Chop it right there, sorry. And then you're going to copy that, and I make a new audio file so that I can paste that. So I already copied it, and I'm just going to paste it right here. And I also like to put the MIDI melody right next to where I'm going to be pasting it, because I like to use those MIDI notes as reference. So I'm going to paste that right here. So as you can see, it's a little bit longer than the MIDI note I have. The MIDI note goes from 41 to 41.2. So I also want my vocal part to go that same length. So let's see basically how that matches up. So obviously it sounds kind of weird right now, but sounds good enough for me. So I'm going to keep that one, and I'm going to chop it right at the end of that MIDI note. So as you can see, that MIDI note ends right here at 41.2. So I'm going to chop that right there, and then trim off the fat and delete that excess. So next, we're going to go on to the next note, and we're basically going to be repeating this process for, well, until we've had the entire MIDI sequence covered. So we're going to be looking for a D, and I know that's the fifth note in the scale reference, all that good stuff. So I'm going to be looking for that D in the melody.
I still go through.
So in this case, the very first note in that vocal melody is the D, and the note that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it right at the beginning of the transient, and then I'll trim it towards the end. Now I'll copy and paste and do the same thing. So this next MIDI note starts right at 41.2 and it ends at 41.3. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it at 41.2. And, well, this one I didn't cut long enough, but whatever. I'll just make it work. So, let's see. I can actually make that a little bit longer. I'll just do that. So I have those first two notes covered. Next thing I'm going to be doing is looking for this third note, which is an A. That's the second note in the scale. So I'm going to go back to the vocal file and look for that A now.
I still go.
So that go, it'll also work. That's the same note. So I'll go ahead and trim it right at the start of the transient, and then trim it here. And do the same thing. I'll go ahead and paste it. So this MIDI note starts at 41.3 and ends, well, right around here. And I'll just cut off the excess. So that's basically what you do. You just do that whole process for the entire melody. So let's see how that sounds. So it sounds a little weird. You sometimes need to like find a new note that fits better with what you're working with, but that's basically the process. And when you're done, well, it basically sounds like Now you don't need to go through for every single note and find a new note. So for example here, this one's an A, and then I repeat that note again here. So you can just copy that same A. It kind of makes things easier. So just copy that one, and then that's going to go right here. So you don't need to find like a million different phrases in the melody. You can kind of just, once you find all your notes, you should be good. So, I mean, that's basically it. I hope I was somewhat clear. Go ahead and feel free to message me if you have any questions, but I will post a link to my site where you can download this song for free, along with a bunch of other songs I've made. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
I only need one.